A very warm good evening to all the wonderful educators joining us today from across India and beyond. I, Dr. Sharoli Ray, on behalf of Team Edvishan, extend my heartfelt welcome to each one of you to our Sunday Signature online workshop. I am also delighted to have with us my esteemed co-founder, Dr. Vikrant Singhal, whose guidance and presence continuously strengthen the Edvishan mission. Today's session, question paper formatting as per NEP 2020 and NCF 2023, is not just another training session. It is an essential step toward transforming assessment in our schools, toward designing question papers that reflect thinking, application, clarity, and competency-based learning. As NEP 2020 rightly reminds us, assessments should not test memory, they should measure understanding, they should encourage creativity, they should empower learners to think independently. And as educators, we are the architects of that change. At Edvishan, our vision has always been to support every educator with practical, meaningful, and immediately usable tools. Our Sunday signature workshops are crafted exactly with this purpose to bring clarity, confidence, and creativity into your teaching practice. And now it is my absolute privilege to introduce today's facilitator, Ms. Tanya Sibel Jain, CBSE resource person, pedagogical expert, and a highly respected trainer whose work in assessment design, competency-based question construction, and NEP implementation has impacted teachers across the country. Her clarity, practicality, and passion for empowering educators make her one of the most trusted voices in this field. So, dear educators, keep your notepads ready, your curiosity alive, and your cameras on, because this session is designed to be highly interactive and transformative. Once again, welcome to Edvishan, where educators evolve, innovate, and lead. Ms. Tania, welcome to the Edvishan online platform, and over to you now.
Thank you so much. So, good evening to all the fellow educator mentors and lifelong learners. It's truly a pleasure to welcome each one of you to a dialogue or a space where we step beyond the ordinary towards something truly transformative. So, before I start presenting my presentation, I have a food of a thought for each one of us. So, before we talk about assessment framework, let us first listen to learning from a child's point of view. There's this little short self composed poem which I want to present in front of you. I knew the answer, just not the words you wanted. I understood the idea, but my handwriting shook. I thought deeply, but the paper stayed silent. If learning lives inside me, why must marks speak louder? With this thought, let's start our today's session. I would like to present my PPT to you all. Just give me a thumbs up once you all can see my presentation. Is it visible to all of you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. So we are going to talk about aligning question paper formatting, keeping NEP and NCF in our mind. So before starting off, let's first find out what is NEP talking about assessment. We all have understood this fact that the traditional assessment focused more on rote learning, which built on the anxiety. We are just thinking of how we can make students recall and memorize and learn. But is it will be useful for them in future? Have you ever thought about that? Keeping that thought in your mind, an NEP has made a shift from a traditional assessment to a competency-based assessment. Competency-based assessment, as you can very clearly see from the slide as well, is heading towards the growth. We are moving from a rote to an application. We are moving from what is memorized and how we were taught during our times to someone who has to be ready for our future generation. We don't assess children to judge them, we assess to understand them. Now, when we are moving this shift from NEP, NEP has made major 3 point of views when they are making a shift in terms of an assessment. We'll keep it very crisp to understand. From the rote, as I started with, we are shifting to a competency based assessment. There is one major myth or a misunderstanding about a competency based assessment. What is competency based assessment? Would anybody like to unmute and share with me what are your thoughts about competency based assessment? Anyone who would like to unmute? I see, I am a trainer who would love to have an interactive session. Even if we'll be wrong, it's absolutely okay. But it is always a wise idea to give a try. As we always tell our learners also, let's give a try. So, what do you think? What is competency? Or anybody you have heard about talking about competency which you felt clicked in your mind? Anyone? Okay, then we can go ahead and give it. I will share my bits and experiences which I had during my sessions. A lot of people shared that when you have a visual picture or an image, that is what is competency. It's making you think. When you have a long stories, that's what competency is. I beg to say sorry for that. That is not competency. When you have a visual, it's a might be a visual learning part, which is again very very important. But when I talk about competency, I talk about skill where a student is trying to cover up and understand and apply what they have understood. A very basic example, we might just ask students what is evaporation and we expect them to write a definition of an evaporation. Can we make a shift and we make them think that what happened to the water when the wet cloth is kept and it dries up? What is happening? There are a lot of clothes, they are drying up. What is happening to that water? Where is it going? What process is it? Why is it happening? Whenever you make the shift of knowledge coming to an understanding and thinking, that is what is competency. Since NEP has spoken a lot about competency, we should be clear about tapping on skills apart from understanding and knowledge. It's skill to apply, it's still to connect with the real life, which is very very important. Assessment for learning over assessment of learning, these are two major words, and this can be a one whole session to understand. But to just have a grasp of understanding in terms of the language, assessment for learning is when we are shifting and getting learning getting enhanced by assessment. An assessment of learning, when we are learn and we are trying to assess have we whatever we have learned is sufficient or is up to the mark or not. So I'm sure there is a very clear difference of focusing on assessment for learning because it's continuous. It cannot happen towards at one point, okay, today I'm taking a test and I see how's the assessment going or how's the learning going. No, it's a continuous process. Every day, even we as an adult keep learning. We all are learning right now with each other, right? So the process is continuous when it is assessment for learning. So NEP has enhanced and tapped a lot on assessment for learning. And yes, coming up to the holistic development, this holistic report card has come up, holistic learning is coming up. So holistic development has a domain of cognitive, affective and psychomotor. We know we have all kind of learners around, and it is very very important for us to give a tap on every kind of learner. It is very important to give space for every learner to learn at their own level, and that can happen when our assessment shifts. As soon our assessment shifts, other things also starts shifting towards a better learning. These are some basic traditional loops which I observed and which we can see a new pattern has gotten. Some very basic but important examples which we can work on, like define photosynthesis or write a chemical equation. A very basic question which comes up in terms of knowledge. Can we shift to competency
Well,
based by
ma'am.
making them think? Yes, ma'am. Sorry, Jyoti ma'am, you wanted to say something?
Uh, no, ma'am. Right now, you are audible right now.
Okay, I was not audible before that.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, glad that now you can hear me. So I hope we are connected, and I'll just quickly give you a brief of what we did so far. So we spoke about what is NEP has made a shift from rote to a competency based learning, focusing on a continuous based learning. So going ahead with these some examples which we can see in our normal examination papers. So yes, defining a photosynthesis, is it important to define photosynthesis, or is it important to understand how do we apply it in our life, how do we use it in our life? So a farmer noticed that plants kept under a green shade net grow slowly compared to the plants. So this kind of very basic examples, a very basic question of solving an integer part and coming up to a level, how can we solve it? Can we accept different answers? Specifically in math, we all understand their step markings and we focus on every child giving me every step. I'll give you a very short example, which something which happened in me with my class students a long time back. So when I was teaching fractions and we were having a lot of interaction in session, I just started teaching, and there was a student who explained half plus 2 by 4 in a visual manner. And a teacher next to me said, you should give him 0, he has not done LCM. That is very important. And was thinking back and reflecting, is LCM important, or a child visualizing and understanding and taking the answer to the next level is important? What are our thoughts about it? Do we accept different answers, or we stick to the answer we have written for ourselves or in our minds or are there in the book? Anybody has any thought to add on to this? What are your takeaway for this? Jyoti ma'am, anyone else? So, assuming that we are all on the same page and we all understand that all the learners are precious, they are very important, and we also understand the fact that learning is there at equal level for everyone. So, we should have a space to give it to everyone so that everybody learns at their own level and have this caliber to represent. Now, these are some basic ideas by which we can, use our NEP strategies in our subjects. I've taken up various subjects so that at least everybody gets some idea to add on and take it along with them. So we all ask them to create short stories and role play and reflect. So there are various domains, if you would observe. They are cognitive, they are psychomotor, they are all domains we are tapping on while doing this activity. And if we focus or during our teaching, since we already mentioned, NEP is talking about continuous learning. So even when we are teaching, there's a learning happening and there is an assessment happening. So let's have these kind of small activities in our classes to enhance these kind of skills so that we are making our students ready for the competency based assessment. Everything has to be a slow and a gradual process. We can't rush on to something that, okay, something has come up, now let's do all by that side. Students are also learning at their own pace and respecting the fact that we all are on the learning stage. We all take one step, and if we start shifting at one step, we'll be able to see a major shift towards the end. So this one few basic ideas can be incorporated for the formative assessment, where we are just forming their learning. So I hope we have noted down with these little ideas of telling the story, drawing, representing. If anybody has something more to add on, we may go ahead with that also. So, what is the major shift we understood from our first learning outcome is traditional assessment and NEP aligned assessment. How are they shifting from recall to the thinking and application? From a single correct answer to a multiple valid responses. from a marks focused to a learning focused. Now, with this, I just have a very short story to share with you all. I hope you allow me to do that. So, there was a little girl, Ria, who was always quiet in the last row. Her notebooks were messy, her handwriting was uneven, her answers were rarely matching the textbook. And in the test, she hovered around the passing the marks, never failing badly, but never excelling either. So I'm sure we all had an image of one child in our class who's like this. Now, one day during a science exam, the question came up in the paper: explain why plants grow towards sunlight. Now, most of the students wrote the standard answer, which is there in the book. But what did Ria wrote? Ria wrote, plants bend towards light because light feels like hope to them. Just like people grow better when someone notices them. What do you think the examiner must have done it? The examiner circled the answer, marked it incorrect, and gave us 0 marks. The life goes on. Years after year, that same child met the teacher and said, Ma'am, do you remember me? I'm Ria from the last bench. The teacher smiled politely, searching for her memory. Okay, where is that child? Who's that child? Ria continued softly. I never scored well in exam, but I always loved understanding why things worked. I just did not know how to write it in a right way back then. She paused and added, I wish someone had told me that my thinking mattered, even if my answer didn't look perfect. That night, the teacher went home, opened old question papers, and for the first time, she didn't look at the answer. She looked at the questions. This is what I'm expecting us to do today. We don't have to look at the answers, but we do have to look at the questions. What kind of questions we are asking from them. And we all, I'm sure, have wondered how many Rias have passed from us unheard. So, continuing with my presentation, I think that must have given you a food of thought to at least accept the fact that yes, we all have some students like this who need this shift from us. And we are ready to do it. That's the reason we are here. So NEP's shift we observed. So I'm here coming out to my second LO. Before I come out to my second LO, I just want you all to take a pause for a few seconds and just quickly recap that what is NEP expecting us to do? A little shift of accepting multiple responses, focusing on learning, shifting from the teacher-centric approach to a child-centric approach. हाउ वुड वी चेक दी आंसर्स इस आंसर को कैसे किया जल्दी कैसे चेक होगा बहुत सारे पेपर्स हैं इतना सब पढ़ाने के बीच में ये कैसे किया जाए आई एम श्योर you all had these thoughts in your mind and we'll gradually towards the end answer all of them but NEP has beautifully made the shift and made us think and pushed us to work on it. So coming up to my next LO, how is the question paper drafting from NEP's perspective should be taken up? So these are some very few key pointers which you would observe, and out of all these few key pointers, there are few major ones. One, HOTS. We treat every question where we increase the complexity or a level ahead, or there are 10 parts and we feel it becomes a HOTS. HOTS is a higher order thinking skill. So we need to really tap our students' thinking to go beyond. I make a child plan for a picnic. I made a child create a model. When you go beyond your level, you make your child do something in real life. That is when a child starts going on a higher order thinking. It's not easy, but I'm sure we can push to go to that level. So the questions should have HOTS. The question should not be with the familiar context as book. In maths or in science or in every subject, in fact, to that extent, shifting out with few words actually is creating a similar context and blocking our students' mindset to go beyond and think. So to make them think more, we have to have an unfamiliar context to give an exposure of. reduced predictability of the exams, balanced paper, diverse type of questions. We'll be looking at what kind of diverse questions I'm talking about here, or NEP has mentioned, focused on learning outcomes. What is a learning outcome? We spoke about competencies. We know there are a lot of skills that we are tapping in. But how would we focus on a learning outcome? We have majorly seen this learning objective, learning outcome in our lesson plans. But do we need it for our question papers also? Keep that thought in your mind. Maybe we'll let towards the end talk about it. Do we need learning outcomes to create our question papers or not? With that thought, we are going to the next slide. Before and afters in an NEP 2020 lenses. There are aspects. There are what is the traditional pattern we followed till now, or maybe from the last few years we have changed or moved a little, and how is competency-based assessment is focusing us to work on. So purpose of assessment is very very important. हम इतना बड़ा सा बहुत सुंदर सा क्वेश्चन पेपर बनाते हैं, बहुत सारे केस स्टडी क्वेश्चंस डालते हैं, बहुत सारे एप्लीकेशन क्वेश्चंस डालते हैं, एंड वी आर हैप्पी वी मेड अ ब्यूटिफुल पेपर, इट्स एन अचीवमेंट. But did it solve the purpose of the assessment? What was my purpose of the assessment? So what context are we teaching? फ्रैक्शंस का एक पेपर बनाया मैंने, बहुत मजेदार, बहुत तरह के क्वेश्चंस थे. यू नेम इट एंड दैट काइंड ऑफ क्वेश्चन वाज देयर. ट्रू, फॉल्स, मैच द फॉलोइंग, assertion, रीजनिंग, थिंकिंग, case study, everything. But I missed out thinking कि when I was teaching this concept, what was my learning outcomes? What did I focus on teaching? When I was teaching my child, or when I will be teaching my child, what will be that outcomes which will be important for the child in their future? With that thought that what will be the importance of this concept in future, क्या उस एडिशन ऑफ फ्रैक्शन में एलसीएम पढ़ाना इंपॉर्टेंट था, क्या फ्रैक्शंस को विजुअलाइज कराना इंपॉर्टेंट था बच्चे के लिए, उसके पर्सपेक्टिव, उसकी लाइफ के लिए आगे, what is an important outcome? When you list those outcomes and keep those outcome focused and plan backward, हम जनरली क्या करते हैं, हम पहले पढ़ाते हैं, फिर वी डिसाइड ओके नाउ वी हैव टू क्रिएट अ टेस्ट पेपर, अब हम क्लास टेस्ट बनाएंगे, अब हम देखेंगे. इफ वी गो बैकवर्ड, वोंट द जॉब विल बिकम इजी एंड ब्यूटिफुल? We'll think of the outcomes, we prepare our question paper, and now we know the level. And then while teaching, maybe we tap a higher level to my students. So a shift of backward planning can also make our job easy, which looked complicated, but it will make your job easy when you start practicing. So coming back to the purpose, measure, understanding, and application and thinking should be in your mind. Learning outcomes and competency, the focus should not be content, should be covered. फ्रैक्शन लिया है या साइंस की इवेपोरेशन लिया है या फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन लिया है या लैंग्वेज ली है, तो उसके सारे टॉपिक होने चाहिए मेरे पेपर में. दैट इज नॉट द फोकस. द फोकस इज whatever outcomes were there in my planning, or whatever outcomes I'm planning to teach them, all those outcomes and skills are tapped in my paper as well. So outcomes should be the focus, not the content coverage. Direct, predictable, text-based questions should be skipped, as we did spoke about in the last style. Skills should be tested in the basis of analysis, reasoning, creativity, problem solving. Over the years, maybe a child might not be very good with the subject you're teaching, but if you could tap these skills in that child, the child will be surely successful in the future and will surely come back and you will be proudly saying, that's my student. So let's go to that level. MCQs, not MCQs are generally taken very casually. And trust me, when you start creating MCQs, it's the most difficult question to create because it can tap on to the content clarity. Whatever concept have you taught, is it clear to your child or not? If given a thought to that, the MCQ questions can be really outstanding thinking, analytical based questions if created wisely. Okay, is there someone who want to add something to this or have a query? You may pitch in. Okay, May I go ahead? You may switch on your cameras, at least gives me a thumbs up. It'll give me a motivation to go on. And I think I'm not making you bore on. Thank you so much, Jyoti ma'am. That was really a good motivation for me to carry on. And I'm glad that you are with me. And I would like others also to pitch in to do that so that I know you are with me. And I'm not giving too much of lecture thing and we are together. So, descriptive questions reproduce definition steps, a general perception, what we believe in, but we need to have a same shift of explaining, justification, interpretation, making them think. How can they do it? Let them fail for some time. I shared this, I had read this book, Productive Failure, recently, and I got an opportunity to work with Dr. Manu Kapoor. And while working with him with this concept of productive failure, I realized it is so beautiful to let the child fail and learn from his failing. And trust me, if you try to make them think, they go to the next level. Give them that exposure of thinking. So, case based questions are very integral part of the papers, and student responses should be validated. You know, I read somewhere creating a question paper is very interesting skill to work on with. But how do we make it validate and respectful is by creating a rubrics and accepting everybody's responses. So let's respect everybody's responses and accept that if we are put across a question, there can be a variety of answers open to accept. Okay. Is it Kumari ji? Would you like to say something?
Rajesh Kumari Sharma, ma'am, please put your mic off in mute.
So these are some basic examples. I would not like to read them, but I have put it across for you to have a resource to refer to that yes, this is the way there is a shift which has happened in terms of every subject. It's not happening only at one subject, but NEP has made it very easy for us to go and think on a competency based by that little shift. And the only thing you have to think if you want to make a competency based question or a question is how will I make my child think? The moment you start making them think, you are at the right place. You just give me a thumbs up. Once you give me a thumbs up, I would be ready to move to my next slide. Okay, thank you so much. I'll move ahead. So these are some more examples. And some more quotes for you to get encouraged to work on. Because when I started working on an NEP, I remember I got encouraged, but when I was doing, it becomes very brainstorming and very time consuming. And then with the whole schedule of your daily routine, you used to skip and say, okay, let it go. But then these kind of quotes keep you motivated and move on. So that is what was required for us. So I'm going ahead and coming to my next main LO, where I'm talking about blueprint. What is a blueprint? If you ever heard this word blueprint, सिर्फ question paper में नहीं होता. जब buildings बनती हैं, so there is a structure they make. If an architecture doesn't make that blueprint, will the architecture be able to make that building? No. So same goes with us. This is like an base for us to prepare a question paper. So do you see the transition we started with? We started with how NEP made us start thinking and having a shift while teaching, while assessing, how NEP wants us to go on continuously checking, assessing, learning, going on in a lifelong round circle cycle. And from that, we decided, okay, we are going to make question papers and we are drafting questions. From drafting questions, we now are at the level where we need to think if we are drafting a question paper, what should be my blueprint? What are the content of my blueprint? So the blueprint have few main contents and few the next slides will also show you the samples of it. So based on NEP, there are certain person percentages also being shared in the beginning with us, where we mentioned that knowledge. If you remember Bloom's taxonomy, it is a very core concept we have learned during our BEds, and something I think which should stay with all of our teachers all the times, because it is a very content document to be with. And in that document, there was a root of knowledge. If the knowledge is there, then we keep on tapping to the other skills. So knowledge is core and important. So when you start having a shift to the competency based assessments, please keep 50% knowledge based questions, because we do not want our students to fall apart and think suddenly if you have an 80% paper, and which is a competency based paper, do you think your students are ready for it? And do you think they'll take it up, wow, and you will get a perfect responses? Then there'll be nights you checking with the head on yours, oh my god, what did I do that this happened? So let's go steady and slow. 50% knowledge, and then we tap on to collaboration, which is along with the application, 25%, and a creativity, evaluation, analysis goes to the 25% of our paper. So that's a leverage which is being given and suggested to us. So first again comes to our learning outcomes. We should know what we are judging. Then comes to, from the learning outcomes, we do come to the levels and the areas and the difficulty levels, the type of questions we are forming on. So there are various type of questions like objective, assertion reasoning, MCQ, short answers. All, a balanced paper will have all category of questions to work on. So I'll just show you one of the sample rubric. I just randomly picked one, which it was used, and it is very interesting, where they've mentioned about the LOs. They have very clearly mentioned what question type they have mentioned, how many questions they are there, what were the marks given, what are the total marks, and what is the cognitive level. A very, very important. If you remember the slide where NEP was there, holistic development. This is where we are connecting our holistic development with our question papers. So in our blueprint, we categorized what are we going to assess by having in competency and a learning outcome in our blueprints. Then we are specifying the question type, then the number of questions, marks, and all that, and then the cognitive level, which comes from your Bloom's taxonomy again. Now, in measure blueprints, what is missing is the most important part. That is learning outcome or competency. We choose the topic. I'm teaching fractions. I'll have this much weightage, this much hot, this much short, this much MCQ, and that's it. But that's not the motive of a blueprint. You need to have your outcomes and see, is this weightage, this was important outcome. It should be of 4 marks. This is a less, it should be of 2 marks. This is more important. This is very, very useful in the real life. It is 8 marks. It should be outcome centric. The focus should be on the outcome, which we just discussed. NEP also has mentioned while drafting a question paper a very key important point, that outcome should be kept on the top priority. Just for a quick recap, I thought this is very, very important for us.
Hello. Neha ma'am, could you please keep your mic off?
पागल हो गए हो? इस वक्त जाने की
नेहा
क्या
मैम,
जरूरत थी? और ऐसी कौन सी जरूरी बात है? Okay.
yes.
So sorry. So this was just for you to recap about your Bloom's taxonomy, how it moved on, and you see a tip and a weightage given to the creativity, evaluation, and analysis, and kept on the higher part. Can anybody tell me why do you think evaluation, analysis, and creativity is always at the top? Is there any thought anybody would like to pitch in and share? So with this, I think, Shalani ma'am, I think we need to have more polls now because they are listening more, and we have to make them more active now. So we'll have more polls gradually in our sessions, I realized. So we will do that.
I feel
So
sad.
coming up to my So coming up to the next level, continuing with my LO3, blueprints. As we understood, blueprint plays a very important role, and what are the key pointers that we have to keep it in mind when we are talking about blueprints. Then comes to a structured question paper drafting skill. A very basic skill, but again, very important. While you're making a question paper, again, designing your LOs. If you see the first thing, define your competences and LOs. Most important thing in every aspect. So design it. Then comes to the blueprint part with the same context where they are written matrix abilities. Abilities is again coming up to their competencies. So you should know their competencies, their content that has to be taught, that question types and the difficulty levels. So first your LOs, then your blueprint. And after your blueprints, you remember the cycle of NEP question drafting pace. If you want, I just can loop back and show you this one, which told us that no similar type of questions, various questions, learning outcomes to be at the key point, HOTS should be there, balance paper should be there, predictability should be less. So these all key pointers now we are going to cater when we are structuring our question paper. So all your logical skills, your clear instructions, student friendly, everything should be there. So now we have drafted a blueprint and we know we have to frame a questions. So you coming back to the levels where we said our questions should make our students do what? Sleep, answer from book, what they should make our students do. Can anybody tell me? The asked questions should make our students do what? Anyone? It technically make our students think.
What did you ask, ma'am? Sorry.
Okay, that's purely okay. I was asking, when we are drafting a question, we have been talking about creating questions of a particular kind, what NEP has been talking about. So when we are drafting a question, what should be our focus? Our students should do dash more. What is that dash? Do they want to copy the answers more, thinking more? Uh,
I think right now, learning outcomes.
okay. So, but our students learning outcomes, of course it's for us while we are planning, but what should our students do when we put across a question to them? Do they just simply answer the question from a rote manner, or
Ma'am,
should
thinking.
they think? Excellent. So they should be thinking more, right? The thinking should be tapped on. So when you're drafting your questions, please tap on your thinking. Think, how will we make our student think and answer? Not just the direct knowledgeable question, but making them think on a competency level as well. So yes, thinking should be one thing that we should keep on tapped on when we are talking about creating questions. So again, 3 levels when we are talking about drafting a question paper: our learning outcomes, our blueprint matrix which we prepared, and the competency aligned questions. When I'm talking about competency aligned questions, I'm talking about questions which make them think more. So the 3 steps we follow when we are drafting our question paper, and especially the questions. Then we are talking about the steps when we are drafting. So same steps, I would not repeat myself, but same steps are going on: LOs, blueprint, review, and analysis. Who should review and analyze your paper? First, when you are creating a paper, who should review and analyze your paper? Then, of course, moderation and finalization goes to the level when your administration comes in. But one first step of reviewing should be done by who? It should be done by you, keeping these all cycle pointers in your mind.
Subject teacher, ma'am.
Yes, Subit sir, you want to share something? Want to ask
Yes, ma'am.
something? Yes.
Subject teacher, ma'am.
Subject teacher means, yeah, per subject, every teacher will.
Subject every teacher, ma'am.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So your co-teachers, you meant to say, I guess. The
Yes, yes.
co-teachers of your subject should also analyze your paper. Yes, because the one who's creating has a particular mindset and they having an exposure and a teamwork is very, very important. Yes, so the co-teachers should be analyzing your paper. But when anyone analyze your paper from now onwards, give them these NEP cycle pointers and say, please keep them in mind while I have framed this. You keep it in mind when you're checking and analyzing my paper. So some basic key pointers. After now we had a blueprint, we created a question paper. Now after creating a question paper comes our marking scheme and rubrics. Why do we need a marking scheme or a rubrics? What is the need of that? Do we really need marking scheme? We all know the answers. Then why do we need marking scheme? Why is NEP telling us to have a marking?
So uniform checking, that checking should be same for each and every child.
Yes, for uniformity, for having the same level for every child. Anything else? Anyone would like to pitch in? So, as mentioned by Neha ma'am, that marking scheme is very, very important to have a uniformity that everybody is giving answers and we all are at the same page. But here I have a question to ask. What if your child gives an answer which is not in your marking scheme? It's very different. It looks different. The child has used a completely different thinking and I've given you an answer. What would you do at that point? Will you re-refer your marking scheme or you will ask your student to think again and do that question again, or maybe marking it 0 in terms of not giving the answer what you expected the child to give? How do you cater these kind of situations? Like I shared a story of a Ritu who gave a beautiful different answer, but the teacher did not accept and gave 0. So how do you cater to that situation? Do we accept multiple different answers or we stick to our marking scheme?
No, ma'am, we should accept multiple different answers as every child is different and their thinking process is also very different. To look at a scenario is very different of everyone. So we should accept the different answers and we should try to make it nearby to our rubrics that where we can fit that answer.
Very,
That
very
actually I do.
wonderful, Neha ma'am. And we need educators to think this way. As NEP mentioned, we need more educators like this who come up to a level and understand at the child's level. Because as she mentioned, we have different kind of learners. The learners are at the various levels. We have cognitive learners, we have psychometric levels. So we have learners which are thinking, they are visual learners, they want hands-on learning more. So all various kind of learners should get an opportunity to answer the question in your way. But do you give that opportunity or a space in your question paper to students to answer in the way they want it? Whether it's any subject, but do give a thought about it. Am I giving a space to my students to answer the level they are at and the way they want it? That is an innovation what mark in the marking scheme NEP is expecting us to do now. Not sticking to the answer, giving the space and exposure to let the student perform, learn, understand, and continuous assessment happens here for learning at their level. So we have to take a pause here and we have to think, are we doing that? Are we giving the space to our students to learn? Or we are creating an anxiety to answer the way we want it to be seen? Is it still teacher centric or we are shifting to a child centric approach? This is a thought we have to give while we are working on our marking schemes. And with the basic pointers of the marking schemes, which we all are aware of, since we are all hand teachers, I'm moving to the next level where we are talking about rubrics. Why is rubrics important? Where did rubrics came in the picture? So if you remember, in the cycle of NEP, we accepted various kind of learners and we also spoke, like just now Neha ma'am said, various different kind of learners are around. So we also have to mention the point that are we giving them space in our level to judge them? Yes, Reenu ma'am, you want to add something?
Reenu ma'am, could you please
Reenu ma'am?
put? Yes.
Yeah. So here we have to accept the fact that they are different kind of learners. We have to cater all of their learning levels and abilities. So we have to have our rubrics in such a way that we cater all of them. So while creating your rubrics, there are key pointers that we keep it in mind while we are creating our rubrics, and that are these four principles for effective rubrics use. Share rubrics beforehand with the student. If I am aware about how you're going to judge me, don't you think I'll perform on the right tap areas? If I get a rubric that Tanya, these are the LOs you have to cater, and if you don't cater this, then we'll look at your levels, then I will also work according to that. If I get the levels, okay, if an English teacher, while making students recite a poem at the very lower levels also, or maybe a very higher level, if they tell them that this is a marks you will get for voice modulation, won't you think a child will think about having a voice modulation? Why do we have to teach them modulate your voice? No, let them think about it by themselves. Give them the rubrics and let them try. And the second most important and a beautiful thing which I felt is, why can't we involve our students creating a rubric? Like, I will share a very short episode which happened around me, and it was so beautiful to see that there was a fest happening, a mathematical fest, where students were involved in creating models. They were doing a lot of group activities. There was science fest, there was Hindi fest, all subject fest was happening, and they were participating. And I just randomly asked a student, how do you know you're doing well? सबने अपना अपने लेवल का मॉडल बनाया, सबका अच्छा है, आपको कैसे पता है आपका कैसा है? So the child mentioned, ma'am, we have created a rubric and we know exactly what we have to do, exactly what is expected out of us, coming back to the learning outcomes. So my teacher shared a learning outcome with me. With my teacher, I created a rubrics, understanding ki these all areas. And the teacher, when I spoke to the teacher, she said when I was making the rubrics with the students, there were so many areas where they got in. And I never thought that was important. But from students' perspective, it was very important. And the teacher took those pointers in the rubric, and there was a beautiful result of that. So then, second key point where what we understood from here is involving students while creating your rubrics, and use descriptive constructive feedback. No rubric, no marking scheme, no question paper. Nothing can be useful if it doesn't have a feedback after that. आपने पेपर चेक किया, आपने बच्चे को दे दिया, बच्चे को कुछ नहीं पता, उससे पेपर में 0, 1, 2, 3 दिख रहा है, उसे और कुछ समझ नहीं आ रहा. Even to the higher levels of the board exam students, sometimes they don't know where did they go wrong. Their answer is wrong, a teacher has done 0. Who will tell them where did they go wrong? So that feedback is very, very important, which becomes a part of a rubrics, because once you do a rubrics, you know exactly where the child is and you can have a detailed feedback based on your rubric. And the last is updating your rubric based on the validity and alignment, as we mentioned earlier when we were creating marking schemes and the question paper, about their levels, difficulty level, understanding level, cognitive levels, and all of them tapping in here. So yes, ILOs again coming to the high picture here. Coming back now, a traditional marking scheme compared to the competency-based rubrics. Correctness, factual recall, how is that focus is shifting to skills, understanding, and application? How is the wrong answer shifting to the performance ranges? Here, as few teachers or few of you accepted that yes, their range, we have to pitch in and see their answers, where does it fit in my marking scheme or rubrics? This is what we are talking about. Limited marks to grades, constructive feedback, and the use is very, very important. So here, this shift after NEP 2020 came in, when we have focused more on a competency based. Then they are coming up to the various general rubric framework, what has been shared with us, which should be a part of your rubrics. There should be domains: cognitive, affective, psychomotor. Coming back to the first page, holistic development. From the holistic development, what are the three domains we spoke about? This is how we assess them. Like a very important table, you can have a picture of this and have keep this safe with you, because you should know cognitive is catering to what level, affective is catering to what level, and psychomotor is connecting to what level, because sometimes this is one whole different session or workshop which should be conducted to give a clarity on this. But just for a quick glimpse or understanding, I've given this to you for understand, because you'll be creating a rubric, so at least you should have an idea about what comes under what. So this is one clip which you can have on, and give me a thumbs up once you have taken one. I'll move to the next. I'm waiting for someone to give me a thumbs up. And I'm waiting to see some faces on the screen too. Thank you so much, Gauri ma'am. Thank you.
Now you
You
are
want to say
getting
something, ma'am?
many thumbs up are coming.
Great, great, great. Thank you. So I'm happy to see that we all are together on the same page and learning together. Great. So coming up to the next part of our rubric framework, where we talk about performance levels. Again, how well the learner demonstrates. Demonstration scale is something very difficult, very high level, and very challenging. And if you are getting your students tap on that, you are a wonderful mentor and you should give a pat on your back. You are really doing a good job for your students. So yes, coming to making them perform and demonstrate and giving them exposure is one. And second, giving that rubrics where they understand by themselves which level they are. And if you see, हमारे time में वो A, B, C, plus, minus, something which sticked to our brain for a long time. But the terminologies, a small difference in the terminologies have made a lot of difference in our students. So there is a beginner, the child knows I'm at the beginning level, then I'm progressing, then I'm proficient, and then I'm advanced, right? And then after advanced, I can go to my next level. So how beautifully some words make a child motivate to learn more and not demotivate. So going ahead with again a sector, there is another last pointer which I would like to hear with add on to my general rubric framework with some critical thinking examples, which are observable, specific, skill focused, and non-punitive. Please understand what performance look like is something, if you put across to students in a very wise manner, students will take it up to the next drive. So with this general rubric framework, again a wonderful slide to go on and refer to. If you want to click a picture, you may. So again, I've given some basic scenarios of the case study of what kind of rubric should look like. One, something very simple, basic. I've also taken one rubric. I've in fact created one rubric for you people. These days, there's a lot of MUN, in sync. It's trending, what we say, and it's trending among students a lot. And when I went to this MUN, I realized it is a beautiful exposure. We should give it to our students. How beyond their level they go, think, talk, explore, analyze. Beautiful to see how they were tapping on their skills with that. So there are a lot of MUN activities and a lot of what do you call it, hobbies and things like that, where the MUN is now coming up in trend. So I created very short rubric. How would you try to have a rubric and give a child an understanding of what are you expecting from that child at that particular level. So where you are understanding about countries and agendas, you're talking about, there is a lot of research goes in MUN, and a critical thinking, a lot of problem solving. And I've also, for your reference, given the domain, the holistic domain, which NEP is talking about, so that you know exactly what you're tapping in when you're doing this particular area of rubrics. So again, a wonderful table. I'm sure you all would like to click a picture of this. A resource which will be very useful for you in future. No matter which area, which subject mentor or teacher you are, this kind of resources enhance and tap into our learning also. So do read, have a look, And I think, Shalini ma'am, I will share my contact details with them in case there's anyone having any query, they might pitch in and add up after reading this as well.
Or in the WhatsApp group, they can ask. We will share with you also.
Great. So coming up to the common mistakes. I'm sure you all have your own common mistakes. We all have learned from our mistakes. But when we are talking about a common mistake, the only thing, if anybody can read my mind, the one common two words which I've been using and tapping and sticking it again and again to that, is there anybody who can give a guess to that word, two words? What is that one thing which get missed while creating questions, while creating lesson plans in many more places, but is most important? What is that first step? If anybody can connect, starts from L. Is there anyone who wants to answer? Something which is very important whenever you start framing a question paper or whether you start teaching them, you always create and tap on to that first step. So, is there anybody who can tell me what could be that first step? It starts from L. Anyone? I was getting more thumbs up. I want more answers now. I should also know that yes, you are with me and you have at least understood or taken something from the session. Anyone? Starts from L. Vikrant sir, would you
Can you please repeat once?
like to try?
It was just disconnected between.
Okay, I'm just repeating my questions. So I was just asking, there was two words which I'm been referring again and again, and that is one common mistake also what we do. We miss out starting from that. And the two words where first word starts from L. So
Learning
what are those two
outcome.
words?
Learning.
Thank you so
Learning
much. Now I got
outcome.
chorus answers. Thank you so much. Yes, you are absolutely right. Learning outcomes, whether we start framing a question, whether we start teaching, whether we start doing anything, the first step for a teacher is always to list down the competencies and the learning outcomes. That is how you start with a clear mind and you know where to tap on. So yes, thank you so much for all those who gave me a chorus answer. Clap for them. So apart from that, I'm sure you must have given a glimpse on the common mistakes, and I'm sure you must have added to this also. So if anybody wants to add something, please do. Otherwise, I'm just quickly sharing do's and don'ts. So I'm sure in our teaching experiences, we must remember some heavy papers which we checked overnight. And when after checking or while checking, we thought, oh, why did I give this question to them? Oh, why did I framed this way? And so many back thoughts coming in. And trust me, if you go with the flow of the NEP or whatever session we have taken today, if you start with the blueprint, LOs, competencies, and go with the planning, you will not be coming up to this sorry face again. Yes, Jyoti ma'am, please say whatever you want to say. Share.
Nothing, man. It's by mistake.
Oh, that's really okay. Okay, really okay. So, ignoring blueprint, ignoring learning outcomes, rigid marking scheme. I think I spoke in length for that. So, let's give the space. And I think few good, wonderful educators here also added that they are giving that space. So, that's wonderful to see we all are on the same page there. Competency focus should be there. The learning competency should be the first thing that you focus on, which we miss, which is my favorite. Partial credit. Please do give, even in the board exams, this step marking, what we call it. Partial credits always teach a child how much the child was correct on and how much he has to work on. Remember, whenever we started learning B.Ed and all that, we were being always shared with the fact that whenever you start giving a feedback, always start with a positive note and then gradually come to the level where you give the true picture. Do give a true picture. It's not that we don't have to give one, but we have to be gentle, wise, and we always start from the positive. So partial credit is that positive side where a child gets encouraged to learn and study more, and that anxiety of assessment goes on from my first slide, and we move to the shift of growth. And the transparent rubrics, of course. Why transparent? It's because we are sharing with the students or we are creating with them. So there is a transparency. They exactly know what we want. We exactly know what. I'll share there's another good new trending terminology for rubrics, and that's success criteria. I love that word though. Rubrics is a formal terminology, but success criteria is again a wonderful terminology to work with. And whenever I start with my sessions or whenever I go ahead and train my teachers for the same, I always put across that whenever you start a notebook, you please make them list down your success criteria or give them a stick on of a success criteria, and you will see with my own 18 years plus experience in teaching profession, I've seen students doing shabby dirty work to come to a level of a beautiful organized notebook just because they know what a teacher is expecting by just those success criteria, which is a rubrics what we are talking about. So those little strategies I'm sure works on, so we should keep on working on with them. Coming up to my last and interesting inclusive assessment, coming back, though my all contents and LOs you would observe were interconnected to each other, and so is this one. So when I'm talking about inclusive, it says it ensure equal opportunity for all learners. So here we are tapping in with the various different kind of learners we are talking about. We are ensuring that every learner, if it's a visual learner, we give a space for a visual learner to visualize and give an answer. If there is an aesthetic learner, we are giving a space for an aesthetic learner to show their learning with that. We are not just sticking to that one paper or one marks. We are having a continuous learning because of which our students are growing and learning. They are not in the anxiety level. So that inclusive assessment is very, very important. And with the inclusive assessment, always remember, whenever there's an assessment, there has to be a rubrics to ensure better results and better learning. So we always have to give a thought. Is my result getting good marks, or my result is to get good learning and growth in my students? That will always help you make a good question paper. That will always help you making a good mentor. So key takeaway, inclusive assessment is fair. Fair is not sameness. Fair is being justice to all. Equitable, competency, focused. You would see these terminologies repeating, but they are very, very important. And when I talk about universal design for learning, it again talk about that uniformity, which we were accommodating and talking about. So some tools which we can talk about: oral assessments, some project-based learning, some multiple assessments. We don't just take one. There are a lot of internal assessments. And internal assessments cannot always be a pen and paper one. It can be anywhere you see your child learning. It can be a project your child is moving around. It can be maybe you see one odd day your child is connecting your subject with the other subject and doing wonders. That's a skill, competency your child is gaining. That is your assessment, and that's your assessment tool. So choose your assessment tool based on your learners. Assessment tool may vary based on how you want it to vary for your learners, but it is for your learners, not on your learners. Okay, so with that clear note of inclusive marking schemes, assessment tools, and rubrics growth, I think we all have catered with this all pointers already. So I would like to come here and make you think assessment is a mirror, not a measure. Please do think about it. It's a mirror. And just think assessment should, what you should go ahead and take away. Assessment should reveal thinking, not rank learners. Every child deserves multiple ways to succeed. Give them that exposure and space. Question papers shape classroom culture. Question papers shape classroom learning. So it's not just a paper that you make one odd day. It is about a future of your students or a learning of your students, what you're creating. So it is very important. When assessment changes, learning changes. So let's make that change. A small shift in our thought can make a wonders or a lot of big shift in our learners, but a gradual one, not a sudden one. So before you set your next question paper, do keep these questions in your mind. And I would like you to click the picture of this and keep it with you as a reminder. Does this question assess understanding or recall? Can a learner show thinking in more than one way? Are we giving that space? Is this paper fair to diverse learners? Will this assessment build confidence or a fear or anxiety for my students or my learners? So with this, I just wanted to close for question and answer. Anybody who want to question or ask something, please feel free to ask.
It is open forum now. So any query or any feedback or anything you want to share, can.
You can also share your own experiences. I'm sure this must have brought a lot of students, a lot of thoughts in your mind. So thank you so much, Jyoti ma'am. I would like to hear from you people, some little your experience. I also want to take a learning with you all. So maybe any one of you want to share something, maybe a short story that connected to you, or maybe a takeaway from this session. What are you taking away from this session? Jyoti ma'am, would you like to start sharing your thoughts? Neha ma'am, Sumit ma'am, others,
Miss,
Dr. Vic. So then I would like to end with a small thought which I wanted to share. So before we end, I want to take you back to one simple thought. Every question paper we design carries a silent message to your students. It tells them what matters. It tells them how to think. It tells them whether they belong or not. When question reward memory, student memorize. When question invite thinking, student grow. NEP 2020 does not ask us to make simpler exam papers. It makes us to make a meaningful one. So the next time when you set a paper, pause for just one moment and ask yourself, am I assessing answers or am I understanding my learners? And with this one thought, I would like to close down with the meeting. And over to you, Sharoni ma'am.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Tanya ma'am. It was wonderful session, and this is definitely going to help us in coming assessments.
Thank you so much, Neha ma'am. Thank you.
Anyone else want to share your feedback? We will give the feedback form in the group only. You can share your feedback over there. And the certificates will also be uploaded in the WhatsApp group only.
Ma'am, I'm not being added in that WhatsApp group. So can you share the link here only in the chat box?
Okay, I'll ask Dr. Vikrant to add you in the WhatsApp group. Have you filled the Google form?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then we will add you in the WhatsApp group and the link will be shared there. So,
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Tanya ma'am.
Thank you so
and
much.
thank you all for joining us tonight. And every weekend, every Sunday rather, this time we organize one workshop for educators, and we are doing this for the last 3.5 years. So again, next weekend we will come up with another topic, and hope to see you all there. And thank you, Tanya ma'am, for coming as a facilitator on our platform, and hoping to have other sessions with you also. Thank you all. So let us wind up for tonight. Bye. Good night.
Thank you so much. Good night. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.